So here we are on the supercharged NSX here. We're working on doing another air to water heat exchanger here that we're replacing. So on the old setup, it was really ugly. It's something that we literally did probably like 20 years ago, like no kidding. So we were looking at using this core right here. As you can see, it's been already modified a little bit. And the way, like as a quick overview, the way it works is that here's the throttle body, here's the intake manifold. The throttle body is relocated pre-supercharger, and from the supercharger it creates air and it comes out here, and the plan is to get it through the heat exchanger and then back down into the intake manifold down there. So this core was like the largest core that we could fit in terms of dimension, and yes, while it does kind of fit, it doesn't exactly fit. So what I mean by that is that the hatch glass gets in the way. So when we close the hatch, it basically sits like this. So we're gonna have to rework this here, and it's going to do like a slight taper. This over here will box this in, and then we will have the charge pipe coming out through here, and that should clear the hatch. Now the problem with this setup specifically is that we come into contact with so many things here. So down here we've got the evap canister in this little corner over here. On the opposing side, we would have to redo all of this here to mount the coolant reservoir. So it just seems like a lot of work for a supercharger that doesn't create a lot of boost. So keep in mind, this supercharger makes like 6 to 10 psi, like nothing absolutely crazy. So do we really need to justify a heat exchanger this large? So here's the old heat exchanger, which obviously is extremely ugly. Keep in mind, this is on the side of inexperience here, but you can kind of see that the supercharger went through here and it went through the heat exchanger and then just came out, and then that was that. So we may reuse this and mount this in a different location, because the new owner of this car wants it just to look extremely clean. So we actually may even take this and then tuck it underneath the car instead, and then just have the two pipes running up. So we would have, from the supercharger, it would just run down, it would continue to meet to one side of this, and then this pipe would just basically come up. So we're not quite sure what we're going to do just yet. We're going to raise the car up here in a second and then just investigate what it's going to look like down low. So here is the how we had the air to water intercooler set up on the NSX. Obviously it's not all the way in because we're replacing all this. So the way it worked was, you've got the throttle body here, and air would go through the blower and out of the blower through the heat exchanger, and from there it would go into the intake manifold. So the throttle body used to sit here, but when you do a root style blower, you actually need to move the throttle body up here. So there were a few things that I did not like with this particular setup and why we were changing from it. The first thing was the coolant reservoir. There was virtually no way to get to it without pulling the heat exchanger off. The second thing was the fuse box area down here. The fuse box currently is just tucked underneath here. I don't know if I can reach it. So here's the fuse box just sitting down here. So, you know, you don't really have to go through a fuse box often, but, you know, when you do, it's always in some type of emergency type situation, so it was a pain in the ass to get to. So we added a blow-off valve. I'm not really sure why we added a blow-off valve, considering that the kit comes with a bypass valve. So not really sure why, probably just doing that for the sound. You know, again, this is 20 years ago, so the ricer thing was real big. So here we are underneath the car here. And so we're thinking that we could probably get away with mounting the old core along here. As you can see, there's like some bumper support brackets, but we could always add those brackets to the old cooler, and it would still tie in the same way. And then we would have the two pipes running down and going through there is essentially what we would be doing. And this mounting it here would be a lot cleaner. So we're going to investigate that as well before we move forward on doing any more cutting and welding. Alright, so this is kind of what we figured out on the intercooler core. We're basically going to integrate the coolant reservoir into this. We're going to move this completely far back here in the end. Jeremiah will make new end caps here, and then we'll rotate this out to meet to the top of the supercharger. And then on this end, we're basically just going to box it out just so it looks pretty, and then we'll box this end out, and then it'll go straight into the intake manifold. So now with the new heat exchanger that we are fabbing up here, not only will it be larger, but we're going to integrate the coolant reservoir into the heat exchanger. It's not going to share fluid, it's just basically going to be mounted together. And then with the new setup, hopefully, if everything goes well, the fuse box should go back into its original location, and we shouldn't have any problems with that. Okay, so this is kind of how the air to water is going to be situated here. So what we're going to do is, as you can see, that's the outlet. We're going to have it right about here, build a new end cap here so we get rid of all this, and it's going to look a lot better. We plan to integrate the coolant reservoir into this little area right here, obviously with a radiator cap and the inlets and outlets. Then on this side here, as you can see that it's a little offset, what's going to happen is that we are going to turn this triangular shape back into a box, and then that should give us the direct mount right straight into there. We'll add an IAT somewhere. I'll figure that out later, and then that's it. So make a couple considerations here. The biggest one is the fuse box sitting down here, and then the charge pipe and how this frame is just built. So that's the reason why we chose doing it the way that we're going to do it. We're going to change a couple other things up here while we can, but that should be it. So we'll go ahead and start cutting out that intercooler and then figuring it all out.